Okay, here's our patch panel laid over the portion that was removed. These lines here and here show me approximately an inch of good steel to cut into. Same thing here. That line shows me good steel all the way to here. So as I'm doing this, I can look here and see, okay, that's where I want to cut from here to here. The understructure's been rust-proofed. Basically, that's be specific, Rust-Oleum's gold galvanizing compound. It's much less money than, say, a 3M weld through, and this is a weld through, and it has a whole lot better rust protection. So what's going to happen, this bottom lip is going to be our outside skin replacement lip. So I want this not completely flush here, but set in just a smidgen. About like so, a couple 16ths. Because as the new panel goes on and rolls, we don't want this lip getting farther and farther deep. So we keep this up about here, and as that panel rolls over it, we'll have the same exact line. So that'll go right there, and the way that'll happen is it'll get a spot weld to keep this right where I want it. Then I'll go down here and do the same with this side. Now all this aftermarket stuff is, you know, sized badly. So there'll have to be a little fight, but my concern is getting this bottom edge correct on each side. And then if I've got a little skin left over on one side or the other, I'll just hit that with the grinder and smooth it out. But we want this piece to fall in right to the other one. As you can see, it's got a little bit of wiggle to it. I could cut this in half and let them come together so that I'm sure these skins are where they should be, which once I get a spot weld on one side, I'll know, because this has to be tight as possible, because this skin is going to drop in to this one. So we're about 18 gauge thickness that this needs to go forward. So I'll probably work from one end to the other, patching this cut in, which will move this panel that way. And then if I don't like this fit on this end, I will splice this and bring it together. These panels are never right. That's just part of the deal. You can see that sloppy. If I tried to push this side in and this side in, it would end up puckered along here. So what's going to happen now, I'm going to get a good spot here and get this panel nice and tight so that as I push it in, it'll probably go to my left, but it'll give me a good start on it. Like I said, my big concern here is that lip, making sure I'll have a nice bending area on the new panel. The new panel has a lip on it, so it's relatively straight. So as long as this end is correct and that end is correct, that panel should sit in there just perfectly. All right, I'm going to get that spotted in, and I'll start my cuts here and push this panel in and show you how that splice cut works, which is on another one of my videos, so I'm not going to put a whole lot of time into that. I just wanted to show you how to fit a patch panel in without hammers and trying to make this out of sheet metal. If this was Fuchs or somebody, one of the Kindig-It, they do that because they get $100 an hour to waste your time. So yeah, I don't get paid that much. So I have to do what's best for myself and my customers. So that's why I use this aftermarket skins to get me into shape. Plus, it gives me this pieces that I can use for patch material and things later. And I think this panel was maybe 50 bucks, this piece. Can you imagine what it cost in labor to reproduce that and to try to get the correct fittings? So let me get that done, and I'll show you what comes after. Okay, so here's the start of our splice. I had to use my 3-inch cutoff saw to start this to get me far enough to get the body saw in there. So what I've got now is a perfect cut, and behind here though is that the old steel. We need to push that back out of the way like that so we can get a couple spot welds here. And we want to keep that gap about the width of the saw blade. So if you got no blade, you can put it in there when you do your spot welds. Or in my case, I've got a handy dandy putty knife with a stiff blade that's also about that width that I'll put in here as I do my spot welds. So we get those panels flush here and here. We're not worried about this down here right now. We're going to get a good spot here and here. And because that underlying piece is so stiff, we're going to keep coming around here, probably down into here. These spot welds are about 3 fingers apart. Once I get down here, I'll be able to reach in and pull that old skin completely out of the way. And then I'll just keep going down. And as I said earlier, it looks like this panel is not going to want to fit just perfectly down here. There's quite a gap there. Like I said, those aftermarket patch panels are just a pattern, basically, to get you started with. So with this hole here, once I get here, I'm going to use my body saw and cut a nice slice out of here. That way I can get this panel back where it should be, and I'll do the same thing we saw on the other end by spotting it in, and then that overlap will be over here, and I'll body saw through both of them, and I'll have a perfect flush welding area. So that's about it on these. Like I said, I've got other videos where you can see where I explain the welding so that you don't warp panels. I'm not going to get into all of that on this video, but basically you keep your spots, you know, a few fingers away. I like to go about 3, but when you're fighting a corner, you're going to want to make sure that corner's in where it should be as we go. And then the key, and I use MIG because TIG is very hot. As you see, a spot weld here, you know, gets that much heat out into the steel. So I'll bounce back and forth. I'm sure that's covered by other people, but that's how you get a nice patch panel put in. I will add to this video once this one's all in and I go to the other side. But you see what I always try to do, my weld is going to be right at this lip. When I'm done grinding the welds, this probably won't need any filler. It'll be a really nice area. Plus with a bend like that, it's super strong, so you don't have to worry so much about warping the panel. And that works on inside outsides. When we get to the other side, I'll show you, there's a body line on this truck I might use on the outside panel for my weld seam. But I'd like to keep it really low if I can. So I'll get this set up, weld it in, show you what that looks like, and then we'll flip it over, finish it up. So here's the finished panel. Stitch welded in and ground down. As you see, it'll need very little body work to touch that edge up. And the skin is still perfectly flush and tight. And now we've got that nice flush line from here to this side for our skin to go over. So now I'm going to flip this over and start on the skin.